Hey everybody, welcome back to Terminus, the Cyberpunk 2077 of extreme metal journalism. We're all celebrating, it just came out. I am the death metal guy, aka Jeffrey Epstein is alive and he's every member of Ghost. I've been sitting on that one all day.
Hats off to you, bro. I doff my fedora. Okay. And on the other side of the spectrum, I am the black metal guy, aka new species of beaked whale discovered off the coast of Mexico.
Is that a thing that happened, or?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Beaked?
Yeah. Beaked whale, a beluga is a beaked whale, very special kind of one. But yeah, this is just, just a sort of a long chunky boy with a beak.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, and they were friendly to the researchers, which maybe signals that they lived in a far enough offshore that they were not hunted to almost extinction within recent memory.
Well, now that they know about him, the Japanese will deal with that. So,
oh man, Whale War, one of the best. I'm not a big South Park guy, but my friends have showed me some. Whale Wars, by far the coolest.
Oh, that's a good one. My favorite ever was Good Times with Weapons, where they did it as like half an anime. Absolutely outstanding. I remember the first time I saw Butters with a shuriken stuck in his eye, I almost pissed myself.
Sounds like what we can agree on is when South Park and Japan work together, they can achieve great things.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, get rid of the whales.
Exactly. Nuke the whales, man.
All right, so.
Episode 32. God, now we're at your age. Shit.
Yeah, wonderful.
So, real quick, this is the last note, but let me bring it up front. So, plugging some of our additional content, our additional free content for you non-pay pigs out there. We have an interview that just came out with Warg from Heretical Sect. And you just did an interview, and I just got done editing that. That'll probably come up this weekend, next week, something like that, for Sepulchral Curse.
So
with
that was Kari and
cool.
Yako.
Yeah. It's interesting watching you do an interview, and I just see, when I'm editing it in my software, just the huge blocks of you talking for 2 minutes and them talking for 5 minutes. Much more organized than like my Numa Hagion interview, where it's just us slapping across each other.
Oh yeah, well that guy's your bro also. But no, the reason it's so organized was we were having technical difficulties. There was some sort of feedback loop being created in CleanFeed, so we just did it sort of. It went away if we muted our mics. People who weren't talking muted. So it was. Yeah. We had this kind of like ritualistic tea ceremony approach to the interview.
Yeah, I cut down some of those big silences for you, so it's a little more streamlined. But if you want the real experience, imagine like a pregnant 10 seconds of silence every time someone stops talking. So you're welcome for cutting that down.
That's the time it takes for the signal to get there from Finland.
It makes sense.
Okay, but yeah, that was a fun interview, and it will be. I'm excited to get that out there.
Yeah. So, news from the greater Terminus co-prosperity sphere. Black metal guy, what have you got for us today?
Well, I think the co-prosperity sphere has expanded now to include some acts associated with Transylvanian tapes. I was in touch with that guy because we covered the Gravkvad last week. And he mentioned that he was putting out something by a black metal project called Empyreal, which is another project of the dude from Crushing the Scepter. And that he had found out about it from presumably your excellent interview with Crushing the Scepter.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I remembered he rattled off a few of the old bands he'd been in, so it's cool to see that he's putting out some more stuff by that guy.
I hope none of that was like secret or something, but basically.
Well, I mean, we did an interview on it, so probably
no, but the link to link to Imperial. Oh, he mentioned Imperial in the interview.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna just that just came out. That's a December 12th, actually, like literally just came out on Transylvanian tape. So we're gonna sample that. Right. Neither of us has heard this before, so reaction sample. What title looks good?
I kind of like delusions of morality.
I like that too.
I could use that to describe a lot of people I know. So
Yeah, for sure.
So let's listen to a couple minutes off the top of that. Says at the bottom of that page that it's inspired by Nyctalgia and Zaster. Definitely hear the Zaster there. I'm very interested because Nyctalgia is like one of my favorite bands ever. To hear if some of the other tracks are a little bit more like that.
Yeah. Which of the bands that we've covered on here, aside from Crushing the Scepter, because you can really hear how it does sound kind of like Crushing the Scepter. Which of the bands with the DSBM bands we've covered this year do you think this resembles most?
Probably Negative or Nothing, with less of the cold mechanical thing that they had.
Less of the post-punk, maybe. This sounds a little more like, this is like very recognizably black metal.
Yeah, this is very Zaster, but it's Zaster, but it's got more distinct kind of melodic ideas. It's not totally lost in the haze. We talked about that on our interview, about how Zaster is a huge influence, and he's always been like kind of so-so to me. But this is a more interesting take on that same kind of paradigm, I think.
All right, yeah. Zaster's got some cool keyboard melodies, I think, from what I remember. But the only thing I ever had by him was like some demo comp that I got randomly and then sold.
Yeah. All right, and you got one more for us, don't you?
Yeah, I thought we'd just fit this in here. This is not part of the greater Terminus co-prosperity sphere, but a co-prosperity sphere always looks outward toward the future. It could be. So we're going for this is Calling All Locus, which is by Venus Star. And Venus Star is a band that you'll probably appreciate. It's in that sort of strange corner of outlier Finnish black metal. So it's like a little bit like imagine something between Ride for Revenge and Samos Equinox.
Okay, I can get behind that.
And this is out in early November on Terratur Possessions. I got a Venus Star tape from them long time ago. So it's nice that Terratur is still working with Venus Star. And I also, as far as I can tell, it seems like Terratur's got some big releases lined up for early next year. We haven't covered them yet. Obviously, for those who might be Zoomers or whatever, Terratur was one of the few underground labels keeping it real during the dark years.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's try, I remember Sapient Vortex being pretty cool.
Okay, well, let's just listen to this whole thing. It's only a couple minutes long.
Yeah, all right. Neat.
That's kind of interesting because it's like, it's talking about those familiar won't be in for any surprises as we're still talking harsh mid-tempo primal Finnish black metal inspired by the same country's classic acts such as Beherit, Black Crucifixion, and Ride for Revenge. But that's really not the vibe I get off this. This is definitely cool wizard music.
Oh, I was gonna say, for sure this is cool wizard music.
And actually, this reminds me very heavily of my favorite cool wizard band, which is Seer Bliss.
Oh, interesting. I can hear that. What do you mean?
You've got the kind of rockish, like, sort of old school hard rock, almost bluesy sort of arrangement on the rhythm guitar, the subtle keys, and moreover, the very kind of relaxed feeling that I always associate with Seer Bliss. It's like, bro, I'm a wizard, I'm in a cavern, there's bats, but they're cool, you know?
Yeah, it's got a lot of sort of rhythmic, subtle kind of intense rhythmic movement in it, but it all blends together in a kind of the overall effect is still very tranquil.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got that kind of, the Celtic Frost guitar under there, the blue kind of bluesy rocky thing seems very Celtic Frost in a way that would link it to Beherit or Black or Ride for Revenge or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I also heard a lot of like Greek black metal in that, which I think is probably a reference point for a lot of these more mystical sounding Finnish bands. But like behind the in the more melodic passages behind the guitar, those sort of colorful chords at the front,
mm-hmm.
you could hear that another guitar kind of doing just like 16th note chug really quiet.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Rotting Christ thing. But that particular track brings out like the most, I would say that track is one of the most melodic things I've heard from Venus Star. Okay. I think there some of the other tracks are just straightforward stompers with maybe a little faster than Beherit or Ride for Revenge. Mm-hmm. Brute Vox sort of thundering low end riffs, which I enjoy. That's certainly how it sounded back in the day, and I feel like I've heard other stuff from them that's more blissed out, and this record seems to be kind of integrating both of those sides of the band.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I've never really... I think I've heard the name before, but I've never really been familiar with them, so I'll definitely check some of that out.
Yeah. Also, worth saying, it's got a pretty cool cover.
Yeah, it's a very post-punk kind of cover. I like it.
Kinda, yeah. It looks like a sort of looks almost like some sort of Babylonian sort of relief figure, almost like a Gilgamesh kind of thing, but broken up in this sort of shattered kind of this shattered picture plane.
Yeah, it's neat.
Pretty cool. That's art by Denis Forkas Kostromitten, who's one of those guys who does art on a lot of big black metal releases. But I like this better than some of the other stuff I've seen.
Yeah. All right, so I know you guys are listening, so clearly you're passionate about aggressive opinions on Chilean war metal and things like that. So if you want more of that, feel free to follow us on social media. You can follow me, the Death Metal Guy, on Facebook at Terminus Podcast, or the Black Metal Guy on Instagram at Terminus Extreme Metal. And then if you're extremely dedicated to our craft, to an unhealthy degree, you can give us money on places like Patreon or Subscribestar, where $3 will get you access to all of our Terminus Prime bonus episodes, the last one being a head-to-head comparison of In the Nightside Eclipse and Altars of Madness. And $5 and up gives you access to the Terminus Black Circle, our secret private Discord server, where we discuss the finer points of French gore grind and Ingmar Bergman films. So,
nice.
trying to suck in all the Ingmar Bergman people that are apparently in the extreme metal scene.
Yeah. We got a new patron at the rank of Black Circle level rank of Black Metal Hermit the other day. So thanks to him. Shout out.
Alrighty. So, we got a little sandwich going, and you're the buns and I'm the meat, so...
oh, man, this sandwich thing. Oh, God.
You arranged it. You're the one who arranged the running order this time.
Oh,
so.
It's just a strange image. It's, I
get to imagine there's two of you. I love it. All right, where were you starting with?
I'll be over here killing myself. It's, first off, what is the end of year for if not having opinions about important, about new albums by important underground bands? And as far as still underground, while being extremely important, Horna is about as, is an exemplary of that. And so this is the new one by Horna called Kuoleman Kirjo on World Terror Committee, W.T.C. So, yeah, and I almost started the next segment, but I didn't. Okay. So you go.
So now for the meat in this little black metal sandwich.
I hate
you. You only just started?
I should never telegraph my weaknesses.
All right, so first up for me, the debut album by a Russian band called Depths of Despair. I'm almost positive they're Russian, but let me double check that before I make an ass of myself. Yes, they are, thank God. And this is a record called, and bear with me as I try to pronounce it, Mrak, Pожирающий, Реальность, aka Darkness Devouring Reality, which is a dual release on AuToDaFe Productions, who I'm not familiar with, who appear to just be kind of a Russian black metal label, and the better-known Russian label, Der Schwarze, who handles a lot of the Blazebirth Hall re-releases and stuff like that. So if you have a recent Forest CD or something, it probably came from them.
I think it's AuToDaFe, which is it's some Renaissance word for a witch trial.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think it's either an inquisitorial hearing or some kind of Renaissance kangaroo court.
Oh, okay. I thought it was some weird transliterated Russian abbreviation for something.
No, yeah.
That's much cooler. Yeah. And second for me, dipping back in brutal death metal, since we haven't for a few weeks now, we have the debut record by Focal Dystonia, entitled Descending in Human Flesh. And this is out on Comatose Music, one of my favorite brutal death labels who have actually been pretty quiet this year. They haven't put out a ton of stuff. I'm guessing that something with COVID might have taken the wind out of the sails a little bit. But glad to see him back and glad to be covering something by him.
Yeah. So after that, we've got the new one, which dropped sort of by surprise on everyone. The new one by the UK black metal sort of progenitors of the modern UK BM underground, I'd say, which is White Metal. That's Medal. The record is called Elmet, like helmet without the H. And this is out on Altare Productions, which is Portuguese. That's putting out an LP now. And I think the CD is coming. The CD and digital are coming later on Legion Blotan. I believe that's, or is it the tape? Let me double check. I've got on our spreadsheet here. But yeah, that's the end of our lead-in. So.
And that's actually the guy from White Metal is the guy who runs Legion Blotan.
Yes, thanks for adding that.
Yeah, I was just double checking because you know the UK shit better than I do.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I haven't even looked at your notes, so this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Oh, okay.
Do you, what's your overall take? Let's say...
Oh, are we recording, or...?
No, we could, but yeah, let's jump into it. I won't even look at what you said.
Yeah, fuck it. So, Horna, Kuoleman Kirjo, or you pronounced it differently, didn't you?
Kuoleman Kirjo?
Okay, yeah, I always pronounce it like a Polak,
Filthy Polak. No, glorious land of the winged hussars. So the World Terror Committee is the label also. Remember when sort of 9/11 jokes were fresh and edgy?
Was it designed to be that?
I assume it's always abbreviated W.T.C. But yeah, and Kuolema is just one of those words that if you try listening to the lyrics of Finnish black metal or punk or anything, it's like, you get those words in other languages that are black metal words, and you learn.
Like Perkele.
Yeah, Perkele. But Kuolema is like, comes up so much, you almost think like the Finns yell about death more than other black metal bands.
So what does this title translate to?
I don't know what Kirjo means. You could put it in Google Translate while I do the lead-in, but definitely something about death.
Colors of death, like a spectrum of colors of death.
Oh, that makes sense, because it makes sense with the cover. Have you seen the cover?
Yes, I have seen the cover of the album we're reviewing.
Dude, I don't know, I sent you the promo, so...
I didn't get off the promo. I just got it on YouTube. I didn't even realize you uploaded it.
It's, sometimes you don't even take a close look at the cover, right? But it's a beautiful cover, right? It's sort of more colorful than one would expect, and it seems like a photograph of some interesting modernist sculpture in a cemetery of a great sort of kind of greened over arm rising from the earth.
Two arms clasping hands.
Oh, interesting. I didn't see that. So it's pretty cool. So Colors of Death. Been a minute since Horna's last one. That was 2015. I wasn't crazy about that one. That was kind of I think it was sort of like, hey, let's do this kind of punky... Horna has a reputation for having kind of a punk sound, as does Satanic War Master, too, to some degree. So they were like, let's do this kind of like punky, headbanging metal record.
Yeah, I haven't heard Horna in so long. I was listening to a little Horna on my commute the other day just to try and remember a little bit. And that was the album I picked, and I was like, oh, this isn't very good.
It wasn't good, yeah. And so, they've taken some time to reorganize and rethink. Shatrug, of course, is also the man behind Sargeist, right? Which is one of your favorites. And he's been in a lot of other projects. He was in Behexen at some point. he's capable of producing works of genius and then also just puts out a ton of stuff. So taking 5 years to work on your record and then putting out a massive record is a signal of intent. How would you describe the format of this, dude? This is like a double album, and this is like, it's a double album, right?
Well, on vinyl, it's a 3-sided album. You've got the one main LP with both sides, and then the second LP, which is single-sided with an etching on the back. It's all on one CD. It's close to 70 minutes long. It's a serious fucking record.
It's basically the whole thing suggests this is a serious record. Pay attention. We're not just cranking one out for the fans. This is we're pay attention.
We're back, bitch.
Yeah, we're back. We are back, bitch. It seems this is a little bit shorter, but it's about the same format as the 1.5 format is about like that on Sanojesi RLA, which is I think most people would agree that's their great work. That's their 2009 record.
I always remember hearing a lot about Antiosa.
You might have been following them. Oh, Anya Yosa?
Anya Yosa. It's all Finnish, man. I don't know.
It's maybe. I don't. You were probably paying more attention to them back.
I think that's
back then.
Their old classic.
Okay, but I really, Envatnags before Aniosa is Envatnags Eflos Solf Esgavabat. I don't know, but I found that one used and it's really, really good. That one has more of their sort of depressive side.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, classic Horna basically is Finnish BM, sort of punky stomping mid-tempo stuff, glorious melodic riffs. Often those riffs have a kind of people have described it sounding kind of sour, although that makes them sound unpleasant. But let's just say, Horna sounds melancholy. It encapsulates a certain kind of Finnish personality.
Well, Horna is full-spectrum Finnish black metal.
I get that, yeah. So it's got every aspect. It's got the sort of fuck-off, punky, sort of... You described it there being a spectrum of, there are two kinds of metal Finns.
Yeah, I think you've got these sort of foresty, melancholic and sort of melodramatic in a good way Finnish stuff, and then you've got
intensely alienated and antisocial. My buddy showed me a picture of people waiting for a bus stop in Finland, and they're waiting 6 feet apart from each other.
Before COVID.
yeah, exactly. Long before.
Yeah. But then you've also got the this kind of raucous, drunken, misanthropic basement energy of stuff like Beharit Ride for Revenge, or if you want...
Impaled Nazarene.
Impaled
Nazarene.
The
ultimate example of that.
And also, deeper cut stuff Anal Blasphemy would be, right in that bit.
Yes.
Anal Blasphemy rules.
Yeah, Anal Blasphemy is sick. But yeah, so...
And Horna kind of splits the difference between those two.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think this is consummately Finnish BM. I think Grizzly Butts was is it the style? Is this the ideal Finnish BM? Stylistically, you could argue that the formula for Finn Black has become parts of Sargeist and parts of Satanic Warmaster. But as far as a band
talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, as far as a band that sounds Finnish as fuck, it's Horna.
I think that's one of the most interesting parts is, I think that for many years Horna was the standard bearer for Finnish black metal. And
that's
I think
right.
to a lot of people they still are. But it's funny because, Sargeist originally started as a side project by Shoutrag, and then it kind of pulled the rug under Horna by becoming probably one of the most influential black metal bands, especially in the last 10 years. Horna, has this very wide-ranging, multicolored sort of style, and Sargeist was just this razor-sharp articulation of a single idea of it. And it ended up catching on with people in a way that Horna didn't, which I find very interesting, because it's, a lot of the same people involved.
Yeah, you really like that. You really like Sargeist. It's for sure. I think Sargeist has become better known. It's also worth saying, like, the parts of Sargeist that get ripped off the most, and the parts of Satanic Warmaster that get ripped off the most, are not the parts that sound Finnish. That is, a lot of the coolest riffs on Karelian Satanist Warmaster are the ones, Karelian Satanist Madness. God, I get confused between all the titles and his own pseudonyms, and, Karelian Satanist Madness are riffs nobody bothers ripping off, and those are like the crazed, folkish Finnish ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's listen to some of Sanojesi RLA just to refresh our listeners, and, you'll hear what the death metal guy said is a sort of full spectrum Finnish sound. This is from the title track, kind of just from the heart of the title track.
Big consonant Finnish riff go burr.
Yeah, but with a lot more cut and depth to the melody than a lot of the sort of thin black bands that would codify the style.
Definitely, yeah, I get that.
In the same way that I went back to that Sargeist record too, to Let the Devil In, a lot of the coolest Sargeist riffs have just they have this sort of also kind of melancholy. They have this kind of neoclassical harmonies, counterpoints in the way they're written that just...
Oh yeah, it's very, very kind of Baroque in the way the guitars are arranged.
Yeah, and you can hear individual parts of each riff that the bands who've taken that inspiration have taken, but so much of the other stuff blends out. Like, Shatrug's an absolute master at composing this kind of riffing.
Yeah. It's all a matter of degree. Like, the style is very replicable, but the sheer skill at writing it is not.
Yeah, and so you got, in that general outline, you got basically the Horna thing. It's like you get this kind of intense kind of, you get kind of like a anxious blast, kind of a build blast. You get the punk stomp. You get the very stompy in a distinctively Finnish way. And then you start to get this builds up to this glorious payoff. And the glorious payoff is very glorious, but even so, it has a bit of a sort of melancholy feel, right? It kind of lets go on the second half.
Well, I mean, it's kind of French too. I mean, that's where you see the lines between the Franco-Finnish style emerge.
Yes, they're really joined at the roots. Yeah, it's for sure. So that is classic Horna. What do you make of this one?
This is a weird record.
It is. I agree.
I agree. You wrote something in notes that it's deliberately hard to digest.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, because a lot of things happen. The sense of scale and the sense of time is blown out on this record. Like, on that song we just played, okay, you get two big payoff moments for two different kinds of listeners. You know, you've got the cool stompy part for you. You got the big consonant melody for me. Obviously, we both like both of those parts, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Here, you'll get those same parts, but it'll be a part in a track 3 songs later where it really comes to a head. This has to be listened to as a whole album, despite its length.
I basically agree, yeah. It's almost like it's, yeah, there are a lot. You couldn't say it's one big continuum of trem where nothing happens.
No,
there
not at
are
all.
many musical events throughout this. Probably at least one really cool event per track. Like, distinctive thing that happens.
But not in the explosive way of previous Horna, like the more straightforward way.
Yeah, there was a kind of ritualized structure to the Horna stuff where it was like, you know, like, where we're going to take all the basic kind of feelings that you got from Norwegian black metal and sort of distill them into these punky songs where it's just like, here's the angry blast, here's the stomp, here's the melancholy, you know, majestic chorus, here's the kind of DSBM kind of sad stomp part.
Well, yeah, it's like they're finding a lot more, like the album title, they're finding more shades within these individual parts to explore.
And drawing them out much longer, right?
Yeah.
And very few sort of punky stomp parts, which I think might be for the best at this point in their career, because they've, you know,
there's much less than I remember from previous Horna work. It's really, I don't want to say they shucked that, because I bet it'll be back on their next album, because they've always just kind of like flittered between their interests at any given time. But on this record, a lot of the kind of punk edge is noticeably absent. And, I mean, you can even tell the production is probably the best that Horna's ever had. Horna's always had that kind of, like, garagey production. You know,
yeah, Sanojesi had a kind of angry production.
Yeah, this is much more professional. And it's deliberate, I think, for the kind of music they're playing on it.
But it's a little bit different from the Sargeist production, right? So, like... Let the Devil In has this really cool production. You couldn't say it's nobody's conventional idea of polished. By black metal standards, it's kind of warm and got a sort of bodied guitar tone.
Yeah, it's got a lot of bass on the guitar tone.
And it has, yeah, it's sort of, if you like raw, crazy sounding shit, it's very enjoyable tone. This is a little more like the classic BM ideal of glassy, cold, and remote.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting formatting the samples, because you chose a bunch of stuff, and
I forgot to go back and choose between them. So we'll just we'll figure it out. We'll shoot from the hip.
Mine are later off the record, because I've got the maybe contentious opinion that I think the second half of this record is a lot stronger than the first.
I think you're probably right. I felt that. I mean, it'll take a long time to digest this record
Definitely,
fully.
Yeah.
But my initial impression was also that the average number of distinctive things and the sort of consistency of the mood tended to sort of gel towards the back end.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But you've got some stuff off the earlier part of the album, so is there one that sticks out to you?
Yeah, why don't I? Yeah, I'll scrap one of these easy. One of them was just something that sounded kind of like, the sound Unaton is the third one, and I think that's... The second track kind of just whizzed by. First track strong, second track whizzed by me. Unaton's good, but very much just like, here's a sick Horna song.
Yeah,
right? Kind of like Sanojesi. So, let's go to track 4. Sidan Quoro.
Okay.
You know, fuck if I know that one. Yeah, from about the middle of the track, and you'll hear a mood that not foreign to Finnish BM. And you might be able to go back through Horna's enormous back catalog and find something kind of like this. But pretty distinct mood. Kind of, we get our spacey forest Horna.
Not even Horna can escape the intrusion of Mgla.
Where do you think? I was just thinking about a kind of Mgla thing in relation to Horna, but not this.
At the very end, the that sort of bobbing, arpeggiated thing over the big kind of lead line. Obviously, Horna makes it a little more sour than Mgla would on the back half of that little, like, straight eighth note lead line. But, yeah, that's definitely something I can hear. And that's definitely a case of both of these bands were doing stuff like that. I just thought it was a
case comparison. Of what?
Both of these bands have done stuff like that in the past. It's a funny comparison, though.
No, sure. What I was going to... Well, maybe let's save that thought, because I was going to emphasize a different thing here, but I'll try to come back to that later. I think you're right that there's a relationship between Horna and Mgla, and that there are certain things that Horna was doing that maybe get isolated by Mgla and developed in its own way. Like, it's very hard to find precursors for Mgla.
Yeah.
So Spacey Forest Horna. What do you? I mean, the first riff, the da 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 da, right? That's the Angry Burzum hop. Right?
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, that's a kind of riff that's been used by every black metal band at one point or another.
Sure, but I mean specifically the da 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 da. You know, just like minor third, second da 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 da.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I mean, Horna's also always had, like, a lot more Dark Throne and first Burzum record in it than a lot of the Finnish bands have.
I think that's true. Yeah, so what do you make of this kind of, I mean, what struck me on first was the way all these different kind of guitar parts were kind of meshing with each other in a way that was unusual for them. A lot more atmospheric playing. I was also, on the second listen, or just going back over it now, the drums stood out to me also.
Oh, yeah. Well, they, I'm pretty sure they have a new drummer now. Who's doing much more complex stuff than Horna's ever had before, I think. Which is interesting. This is going to be an interesting...
since 2016. So since after... He's been practicing with them for 4 years, but since after their last record.
This is his first full length.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how kind of old school Horna fans react to this, because at once it's like an elaboration of the sound Horna already had, but I could also see it being perceived, and I'm not saying I agree with this, as a sort of compromise towards nowadays black metal. You know what I mean?
Maybe. But I think it's in some ways kind of inaccessible from a nowadays perspective, because it doesn't really have...
It doesn't have big hooks for the most part.
Old Horna directed your attention towards big hook riffs, whereas this is kind of more... Well, yeah, so I mean, I can hear what you mean in that it's not like punky anymore, but what else would you mean by this?
I think that this is the kind of record by Horna. This is the first Horna record that Brooklyn art kids will listen to.
Interesting. You think they will? I could like it doesn't really have anything for them.
I think it does in this sort of undertone way. The way the album is arranged in this kind of sprawling manner, where it's not giving you exactly what you want at the moment you expect. There's a lot of kind of weird head fake moments across this record.
Oh, for sure. There's definitely that.
Which I think a lot of the art kids will be into, but there's also this core of, like... Because that's the thing about Brooklyn art kids, is, they want something that, it transcends itself in terms of being, oh, this is the high art version. Obviously, I'm talking from the perspective of one of these people. I think it's all bullshit. It transcends itself, but it also has the true black metal credibility that they seek.
I think you're giving them a lot. These guys don't have that kind of ear. Like, as someone who knew a lot
too much credit.
Oh yeah, way too much credit. Like, I mean, as someone who knew a lot of these people, right? And they're it's, obviously by Brooklyn Art Kids, we're referring to a certain type of person that exists in the sort of post-2006 black metal scene, right? They're in every city or college town.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be Brooklyn.
You could equally say, Bay Area. But like, it's, I guess I can hear what you mean insofar as it's very atmospheric.
Yeah.
Like, I think the way that it would appeal to people more like that is the fact that if you're not, say, like, you have to be, like, attuned to the black metal convention and interested in nuts and bolts songwriting to hear the head fakes. Whereas, like, because this record is so difficult, because it's so sort of textural, you can put it on and just hear a continuum of kind of immersive, brooding atmosphere. And I can see that being appealing to people who came into black metal from stuff like Wolves on the Throne or Merkuriana or whatever.
Yeah. So
So
I'll get to one of my samples. So you said there's a pretty surprising big hook moment that I'm guessing you'll use.
Yes.
And you're pretty good at calling these, so I'm wondering, is this the one?
I mean, probably, and if it's not, we'll find a way to sneak it in there somehow, because I really like this moment, too.
Well, I think, it's just, it's always fun, because you're better at calling stuff that I'll pick than vice versa. And this is off the 7th track, Haudatuyan Tatian Yona. And this is the back end of this song. This is where the album really started to grip me, so let's try this out. So I was correct. You were correct. That was the part, wasn't it?
Yes, I was correct, and you were correct that I was correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the single best moments on the album.
That fucking owns.
It comes out of nowhere, and that's why I usually love this continuum of incredibly smooth consonant stuff, but it is the brackishness of a lot of the music before it that makes it bloom so much. It's wonderful. It's that's just, and is this something Horna's done before? The
arpeggiated thing leading into it, that sort of beautiful chiming, rolling arpeggio, that's a thing that does converge with things Migla does.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that Horna was doing earlier in the early 2000s.
But this giant good version of folk metal thing they do?
No, absolutely not. I think that Spellgoth has used... I remember, I think he has some goth influence, some sort of punk influence. I think he's used cleans before. But this record, there's a lot more of it. And God, his voice is really good.
And it's very good, and I also like how the start of that melody is it feels like it's just slightly out of his register, so there's a little bit of Orthon strain to it, which makes it wonderful. It's so good. It keeps the toughness despite how delicate that melody really is.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, and it has that great effect. I mean, people imitate this a lot, but they should. You know, it has that kind of it's in some way it's a nod. Anytime anyone does that, it's kind of a nod to you know, that Bergtat song, right? Where it just comes rolling in with those voices sort of swirling out of the mist. And
yeah.
I'm not a big Ulver fan, but that album is obviously, you gotta hand it to him, especially with the kind of Gregorian chant thing. And
shit, man, I was always a Nathan's Madrigal guy.
yeah, I never really even tried too much of that one. But it's but yeah, so that part is great. Anything else?
It's just so fucking cool. And you know, I'll wait until the end, because I've got kind of like a thesis statement about Horna that I'm curious as to your reactions. But let's go to your next single.
Yeah, I think you're also right about its place in the album. I can specifically remember that at about that point, right, you're starting
the album
to
takes a turn here.
Yeah, like, I mean, you know, you get a few, you know, Sit on Quoro is 3 tracks before. That track stands out for having this foresty thing. Then you get a couple more that are just sort of like, okay, Horna track, 11 minutes of Horna track. And then this track hits and it really sort of snaps you out of the trance. And I agree that after this point, things start to feel different. So this is on opening the, I guess, side 3, if you'd like, if you're doing records. So the start of the second record, or the back third of the CD. This is a sort of aggressive, punchy passage that I think has, where we've emphasized the parts that are we've emphasized a couple unusual standout moments. Here's something that's like the sort of bread and butter mainstay riffing style on this record.
All right, let's do it. Yeah. And this is off Mustad Vlodet.
Yeah, Mustad Vlodet. And I think a little more aggressive, too. This is the regular riffing style, but you'll hear some old Horna here.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. riff. Now that's a Horna riff right there.
Yeah. Dude, that hit, when I heard that track, that hit exactly when I as soon as that stomp riff hit, I was like, I didn't know that's what I wanted, but that is what I wanted.
Oh, that's a great riff. Like, the first two riffs just remind me kind of like of, honestly, like Demo Emperor to me, to a degree.
For sure.
That last riff, though, it's like, yeah, now if all the stompy Horna riffs could be that good, I'd be way more on board with all Horna shit. Yeah.
Well, you know, there's a phoned-in stompy Horna riff where it's, you know, I think the big break they've made on this record, in part, is getting outside of a certain kind of song structure, a set song structure, where if they're focused enough and, you know, the riff gods are, pouring their mana upon Shatrug and whatever, they'll do great things within that formula, and it's a formula they basically invented.
Yeah.
But it's very easy, like in the 2015 record, to make something where you just sort of color in each of the spots. And in that case, there's nothing more annoying than a stomp riff that just exists to be, as you say, interrupting dark.
Exactly.
Whereas, like, they meant that.
Yeah, definitely. They know that that's a huge riff when they play it. Yeah.
And you know what? So the definitely an Emperor thing to that first big lead riff, but there are a lot of riffs like that throughout the album, and you could hear it being sort of Shatrug's take on an Emperor riff. It has that kind of bitter Finnish quality.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's and the power chord work in the middle also kind of Emperor, but just really good work with rhythmic variation on stock kind of interval choices, both of those riffs, and you can hear the drummer just going to town.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they've written doing especially that last da 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 da. You know, they've written those parts together, and the chokes on the cymbals are so brutal there.
Yeah, it's got a great rhythmic emphasis.
Yeah. All right, yeah, that's a bang your head moment. So, what about you?
Okay, so last sample for this record, off the very next track, actually. We got two off the third side, which probably points to something interesting. This is off a track called Piha Kuoleman. So let's just listen to the back half of this, which is very interesting, and I don't know if Horna's ever sounded like this, so let's try
Okay, cool.
So I think the Magla there is pretty apparent. And again, I know Horna's done similar stuff to this, but then actually almost more than Magla, I would compare a lot of that to Plaga, which is like a pet favorite band of mine.
Plaga's great, dude. Yeah.
Goddamn, why won't they do another album?
Yeah, Plaga. Yeah, if you think Migla is too sort of highfalutin and atmospheric, and you wish it sounded more like
the thuggish
street rock.
Yeah, you want the thuggish version of Magla, you listen to Plaga. But the way those two that sort of like cyclical looping lead melody under this more complex, furtive, kind of dark tremolo melody under it, that's something Plaga did constantly.
Yeah, that's a great riff. I would agree that that's certainly not an archetypal Horna riff, and it's very, as you say, yeah, really catchy. I loved the build to that, too, where there was sort of this kind of, again, this kind of more woodsy feel that I haven't got a lot in Horna.
That giant barbarian chant, yeah.
The barbarian chant with the kind of rippling arpeggios. I thought that was the part you wanted to draw my attention to. I was like, this is sick.
I mean, that is very cool, but I mean, all of that sample's very cool.
All of it is sick. Yeah. Yeah, that is really all excellent. So the big release thing, this actually gets to a thing I wanted to talk about too. The sort of, so like, yeah, I mean, in some sense, figuring out where Horna stands in BM now is figuring out where it stands in relation to things like the Migla effect, which is one of the big things that's changed since Horna did some of their best work, right?
Yeah.
Even since 2015. I mean, Horna was already pretty important by then, but it's really the 2015. It's really exercises that sort of sealed their notoriety,
exactly,
right? Outside the BM scene. So I think my guess would be that, I think I'm going to guess that Horna was an influence on Migla, although not in the way that there's really any undigested kind of Horna in it.
Well, Migla's always been tight with the Finnish guys, so it makes sense.
That makes sense. Similar kind of mood, also sort of epic, but very bitter and misanthropic. But in particular, that part you just said, if there's any precedent for it, it's in the back end of Sanojesi RLA, which you would really like. I think I might like to play it for our interlude in the middle of the show.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to dig back through the catalog now.
So the back end sounds like nothing else from Horna I've heard. There are these. He said it was supposed to describe like two sides of satanic experience, the record. And the first one was like, just the sort of like claw fist in the air, black metal. And the second is like a little more in mood like the Sargeist records. But but it is sort of really long songs of just these kinds of chiming, looping, simple lead melodies that play over a bass of other chords. Very epic, but also very kind of grim and sorrowful. It feels a lot like, it feels in sort of the effect, it feels a lot like the most intense moments in something like With Hearts Towards None or something.
Yeah, I get that.
It's similar techniques being used, and it is pretty fucking cool. And the mood is more just one of like passionate devotion. You get the sense that Shatrog's actually a Satanist.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's really into it.
Yeah, he's, and it's more than just about like, I'm the fucking boss. Just,
Ooh, the devil.
Exactly. Yeah, it's more than just sodomizing nuns, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of painful for him.
Yeah, it's an actual religious experience.
Yeah.
Honestly, very good record. It makes me want to dig through, back into Horna's catalog, which, I messed around with when I was younger, but I've ignored for too long. But very good. Probably take some time to digest, but definitely excellent work. So let's take a quick break and get back with our next album.
This is a little one Gash, and you're listening to Terminus.
Alright, here's another random find of mine. Depths of Despair. Mrak, Pожирающий, Реальность. Darkness Devouring Reality. On AuToDaFe Productions and Der Schwarze. This is a fascinating kind of Rorschach test of an album, I think. It's like, whether you... There's moments on this album that are like my first sample will really get into it, where it's just like, this is the passage that determines whether you think black metal got better in the past 10 years or not. You know what I mean? Because especially like in relation to where we came from, you and I, when we first started working together, the type of black metal that was popular. Had this album come out in 2010, it would have been answering dreams of mine. You know what I mean? Now there's a lot of stuff that sounds like it. But back then, it would have been like an album of the year for me,
So you mean like DSBM, but incorporates a lot of Slavic BM stuff? Isn't... The records we listened to back then, right? It's kind of like... Or the underground back then was still full of... this record is definitely an authentic underground BM record, right? How many guys are in this band? Is this a one person or two?
I think it's two guys, yeah.
Yeah. The equivalent back then would have been way less interesting. Two guys, super underground, kind of DSBM black metal. It would have sounded a lot like Darkthrone and or Burzum.
Yeah.
and there just would have been very little melodic interest in any of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what's interesting about this to me, what struck me is, so this is a very pure example. It's a DSBM record, but it is Russian guys firmly versed in Slavic black metal doing DSBM, which colors it very differently from a lot of the DSBM that you're used to hearing, you know, which tends to be French, or, you know, you've got some Scandinavian stuff, or you've got lots of American stuff. And weirdly enough, Australian has a bunch of DSBM. But Eastern Europe, the depressive character has always been a part of Slavic black metal.
That's certainly true, yeah.
But now you're hearing guys just make DSBM. So, with that being said, let me just go to that first sample I was talking about, and this is the whole litmus test of the album. Is whether you actually like this music. It's not incredible music, but it is a certain type of black metal that I really respect, and I just ended up enjoying this a lot for what it was. So let's listen to... I didn't bother to transliterate the rest of the track, so we're just going by the English titles. Let's listen to the opening of The Awakening. Black metal guy, did black metal get better as a whole from where we started to where we are now?
Oh, well, I certainly agree it got better. Is that... So, I guess, is your idea the proof that, like, this is a generic riff now, whereas back then the generic riffs would have been, like, bargain basement burst throne?
Basically, yeah. I think that this is not a profound riff, or these aren't profound riffs, but they're good riffs. And these are what a lot of black metal centers around now, which is just so much fucking better than it was back in 2008.
Yeah, I basically agree. I find, the first one I find, like, it's like, okay, it's one of these riffs. I don't think it's the best. It's far from the best one of those riffs I've heard this year, but it's, there are bands that are better known than Depths of Despair that have certainly written worse versions of it. It's, that being kind of the sort of Migla-y riff, with maybe kind of Migla Drud kind of thing. I liked the second thing. That's unusual in bands that do that kind of atmospheric riffing. It's like suddenly it gets a lot more aggressive. The basic melodic, they do a lot of nice kind of, to me, nothing riff-wise that memorable, but they do a lot of pretty well-executed, like, energetic, intense Slavblack parts.
Yeah.
Like the second one that followed. And even then, the riff style sort of stays the same, which is interesting. Like, the thing that really stands out in the mix is still this kind of, like, epic, folky lead. And, the lead work over the first riff, like, I didn't find the bass riff much to write home about, but, like, the sort of glistening, crystalline lead over it thing, I thought that was quite well written, and I guess that kind of continues as the trem line in the second part.
Well, I think what this reminds me the most of, digging back into Slavic black metal, is sort of the most miserable moments of Ludomissile. Especially when you combine it with that really, like, clattering, just go, go, go drum machine thing. Because Ludomissile, that was a one-man project, and it had the hallmarks of a one-man project of, like, a lack of fine detail and sort of blocky songwriting, but the riffcraft by Ludomissile is just so masterful and was probably instrumental in establishing Slavic black metal. I think we talked about that some episodes ago.
Yeah, they're underrated.
Yeah. And I think what we're seeing, this is kind of a modernist reinterpretation of that in a lot of ways to me.
Yeah, obviously the riffs here are a lot simpler.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It could be like the earlier, but there's a big difference in Ludomissile's sound. The earlier stuff is a lot. He really develops as a guitarist over the course of it. So
yeah,
it's I can see this being closer to. I've got a tape of some of the earlier stuff, and it sounds pretty different from the later stuff. Yeah, I hear it sounding like Ludomissile for sure. I think the basic way I'd cluster this would be as American and UK variations on Slavic black metal, filtering back into Slavic black metal.
I can see that, yeah.
So in the terms of the lead, that's pretty, like, influenced by Wolves in the Throne Room. I really don't like the glistening lead move in black metal, but that was a case where the lead was well written by this band, so that's good. Like, Wolves in the Throne Room didn't have an ear. This band has more of an ear. And also, yeah, I think just generally the feeling of this kind of, it's obviously influenced by Drug. There are sort of chord gestures and shapes that are influenced by that, but it doesn't have the folkiness.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really... And the, interlocking harmonic thing there is definitely kind of Migla-y, but, like, sounds a lot like Winterfilleth and Wolves filtering back into this. And in that sense, I think it's also kind of analogous to Glush. I think Glush is like the good vibes version of this, and I think also just I like the riff, the songwriting a lot better.
It's a lot folkier, yeah.
And I think just he's a really good songwriter. I think this. I was not impressed by many moments of this record, I gotta say.
I could get that. Yeah, this is definitely for a certain kind of listener.
But it's part of a thing. I think there's almost, even though they're so different in mood, this is generically very close to that, I think.
I get that.
Yeah. So it's sort of like baseline Slavblack riffs plus those big free-floating lead guitar stuff and whatever. All right, so, since I'm being kind of negative, I'll go with a sample that I think captures my feeling about the record. This is from Kiss of Death, and this is, I wanted to just do 3 samples in quick succession. Okay. So I've time-stamped them. This is just an outline of basically the first 3 riffs in the song. I would say that this song is structured in a very DSBM way that I think you might have more insight into it than I do. Okay. And there's some stuff I like here and some stuff I don't like here, but we'll see how it balances out.
All right, let's try it.
Yep.
So just the from the top, just
from the top for about, let's do about 20 seconds from the top. Stop. I'll just say we're changing. I'll do 20 seconds from the next riff. Yeah.
And then the final passage.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's go from the top.
So, I like that riff.
Yeah, I like it too. It's a solid intro kind of DSBM riff to get it moving. It's got some rhythmic momentum to it.
Yeah, you can hear a kind of Migla-y thing, but it also really relates a lot to like Scandinavian, just sort of hypnotic Scandinavian bad vibes kind of riffing.
Yeah.
You know, definitely. Yeah, I can dig into that and, pull my hoodie up in the snow and, shuffle along. Okay, so yeah, I like that one. Here's the change up. This is about a minute in. Not a fan of that one.
I get where you're coming from. I don't mind it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a pretty conventional kind of move, but it doesn't offend me.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I would say that to me, this is the DSBM version of a thing that we both dislike in its other context, which is the orthodox black metal spooky halftime spooky arpeggio break.
I can see that. Yeah,
it's like I'm not opposed at all to like rhythms like that or notes like that. It's this kind of, but it's like, okay, let's do the spaced out Burzum-y drop here.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like for me that kind of break, you could in terms of a kind of poppy DSBM thing I'd like, you could almost make me a whole album out of those kinds of like gloomy mid-tempo riffs that was just playing, and then it kind of breaks that momentum almost out of convention. But I get it, you're a DSBM guy, so you appreciate the convention.
Well, no, what you're talking about is like Abyssic Hate.
That is true.
You like the DSBM that's devoid of emo sentimentality.
Yeah, although that first riff is pretty sentimental, but in a different way. Yeah, it's a little more. I like my emo sentimentality with double bass rolls. And
that's why you should listen to Nyctalgia.
Yeah, and I like Life Lover a lot, right? So,
which I find that's still one of the weirdest things for you to like. I think.
Really, yeah, we'll have to talk about them sometime. That'd be a fun show. But anyway,
anyway, so and then let's get to the third riff.
Third riff, I think it's like. Third riff, it's starting to convince me more. Okay, so let's go to the third riff. Let's do that.
It's interesting to me that you find that more compelling, at least in terms of riff, because I don't think the riff is particularly impressive. What makes that is the little accoutrements on top of it.
Yeah, well, it kind of continues the melody from, the melodic idea gets started in that sort of Burzum-y breakdown part.
Yeah.
But it seems like, you get the double bass roll back, you get some of the forward momentum back, and it and more of those textures coming in over the top.
Well, yeah, you get the ride cymbal with that little run at the end of that, like, too fast ostinato it's doing. You get the keys emerging for the first time, and you also get the those low, like, Hate Forest vocals. So you've got all these textures adding on to what's a pretty kind of stock DSBM melodic idea.
Yeah.
But it's creating variation that way.
So here's a question for you, and this isn't a leading question. So could they have just dropped directly from the high energy riff into that or something like that, and skipped the sort of more spare kind of Burzum-y part, or do they need this sort of space in between?
Probably, but there's kinds of people that are more into those riffs than we are. I mean, I think we're almost the odd men out, because a lot of people really love those Orthodox halftime things.
Well, Lord knows that's true, although the Orthodox halftime people are... the people who are really into that sort of thing, into like the spoopy Watain or whatever, it's like, do you listen to music?
Well, I mean, I would even argue, though, that technique, doing what we're calling the Orthodox halftime arpeggio, honestly, I would almost argue that that's what a more traditional black metal band would do, and the more modernist version would be bursting straight into that third riff. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. It's like it's in there out of convention.
It's a more traditional kind of black metal song structure.
It's more sprawling or whatever, right? It's like it's less like, hey, let's concentrate it down to all the good parts.
Well, yeah, it's like which is kind of like my ethos of black metal. Is my favorite black metal is the shit that literally just concentrates it down to this bare essence of the coolest parts of things that I like, and it sacrifices. I mean it's a double-edged sword, because it sacrifices a ton of variation and a ton of scope, but it makes it so immediate. I think the trade-off is worth it. So I definitely get where you're coming from on that. Honestly, a lot of this album's success, and I'm not going to say this is an amazing album,
but you enjoy listening to this, yeah.
It's kind of like objectively well made. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think that there are very good textural and structural ideas. I'll get to that on my second sample. But let's get to your second sample real quick, because it comes before mine, just so we can get kind of the side of the album that you liked more.
Yeah, so, I mean, gosh, I wish, I kind of wanted to pick the song called Bloody Dragon. And that does have some good stuff on it. But I think this album picks up momentum towards the second half, at least for me. Path of Revenge was pretty sweet. Or at least it's spelled Revenge on the song titles in the Bandcamp, which is pretty heavy. I think we should keep it that way. But Land of Wolves, I think, is quite good, and it's very kind of, you'll hear it's very, a lot about this is very atmospheric, very sort of like influence of Slavic black metal feeding back into Slavic black metal.
I couldn't go with Bloody Dragon, so I went with Land of Wolves, the other black metal guy song title.
True. Okay, so, but I think this part's great. So I think the whole song is awesome. So let's go to start. I think they're just two cool riffs.
Yeah, just right in the middle. Let's go.
like that little gothy bit at the end.
Yeah, I like that. That's a very DSBM move. But it's always good when it happens, so I'm not going to complain about that. But didn't we discuss on the show at one point that you haven't really listened to that much Judas Iscariot?
Yeah.
Because that second riff is a total Judas Iscariot riff.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You could hear it being kind of a Blazebirth Hall riff, too, but it'd have to be a really simplified Blazebirth Hall riff.
Yeah, well, I mean, Judas Iscariot... I mean, you listen to old Judas... It's all old Judas Iscariot. You listen to Judas Iscariot, and you'll hear these primordial seeds of, 5 different styles of black metal in it.
Yeah.
It's so stripped down, you can, read it in whatever way your personal idiosyncrasies feel is appropriate. And, I mean, if you're into that second riff in particular, the one you described as, flying snow...
Yeah, that was a good flying snow riff. The first one was, ray of sunshine breaking into the dark forest. The second was flying snow. Yeah.
Dude, listen to fucking Heaven in Flames, man. It's your favorite album you haven't heard.
I know, you keep telling me. I think I've listened to parts of it just very casually, doing other things, and I know it's good.
Plus, it's got that whole, garage rock energy that you love. You know?
That should be high on my list to do.
It's kind of tailor-made. That should be a bonus episode, maybe. We should do, we'll do, Heaven in Flames or something like that.
Yeah, I'll think of... Have you heard Forgotten Woods?
Yeah, forever ago. I remember them just as being a cool, weird, early black metal band. But I know that a lot of people cite them as a really early influence on DSBM.
That was they were having a little revival in popularity around then because I think Race of Cain came out, which was their sort of... I'm not sure they ever totally went away, but they recorded an album called Race of Cain. That was the last thing they put out.
Yeah.
Sorry, sneeze.
Well, bless you, sweetheart.
Oh, thanks, Mom. But they, Forgotten Woods is really cool, basically, and is a band that, I think talking about Migla with you reminded me to go back to them, because I think in terms of other sort of roots of certain melodic ideas that are in Migla, those kind of gothy arpeggio things that really weren't in a lot of other stuff back in the day, Forgotten Woods.
Definitely. Yeah, I know they're worth revisiting.
Dude, they're super cool. It's like DSBM and kind of stompy, kind of oi heathen black metal.
Oh, okay. So it's splitting the difference between us. Well, in that case, then you should go back and listen to Woods of Infinity.
Mm-hmm.
One of the
was Woods of Infinity the pedo one?
Yes, yes.
But, oh god!
But the gnarliest, stompiest shit in the world. Even I'm into it, just because it's so depraved and weird in sounds, not just aesthetic. But anyway, back to this album. So last sample, this is off the final full track. There's an outro, but it's called Slave Consciousness. Great song title. Obviously. Yes. This is emblematic of the record to me. Every one of the ideas on this sample you've heard before from other bands. Mm-hmm. But there's these... It's almost kind of like the essence of black metal, or the essence of extreme metal in general, because there's these slight modifications. They're sliding the timing around a little bit. They've got a really aggressive delivery. There's just a little bit of a twist on the melodic idea that you've heard 100 times before. And it's just cool, like I always say to hear, you can still get juice out of these very traditional ideas just by playing your heart out and arranging it correctly. So This is towards the beginning of the track. Let's just try this.
Все эти мрази заслужили той жизни, которой они живут.
is the Slav riff from which all Slav riffs descend. I've written that riff 10 times in different black metal projects. Yeah. Everyone is supposed to write that riff. And it's the slight fluctuations on what you put around it and the little modifications to the melody that make it yours.
Well, it's
a standard,
It's usually a stem of other melodies. That's what I was freaking out to you about in the chat. I was like, shit, this is it. This is just like the Slav riff. It's like it's a part in a ton of other riffs. Rob Darkin just does this all the time as a method. Like, even when it's just not a riff, or especially in his later stuff, when he's layering keys and stuff and creating this kind of like accumulating waves of sound thing.
Yeah.
So much of it is variants on that.
Well, it's cool because you've got that like Slav riff, which was the first half, and then the second half is like an DSBM riff. That that little arpeggio has been, that specific arpeggio has been used in, if you're in a DSBM band, you've used it before. It's it's one of those things where it's like, you don't even say, oh, you ripped this riff off. No, it belongs to everyone.
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the riff to Protest and Survive, or whatever.
Yeah. Or the the main riff to Scum by Napalm Death. Yeah, that's for everybody.
But... Yeah, well, we'll talk about Napalm Death a little later. This is... I thought that was really good. I like that. It's, and it could be bad, but it's not. Because they hit it hard in exactly the right ways. And so instead of coming out as clumsy reliance on a stock idea that everyone else has the sort of subtlety not to just use, it comes out as distilling it to its essence, which is great. To pull that off is difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of... like I was talking about this album being a Rorschach test. That's kind of part of it, is like this is these certain black metal ideas for a certain kind of listener distilled down to that very bare essence. And I don't think that it's about you could sit here, you can argue, is this part better than another part? No, it's clearly a record by and for a certain kind of black metal listener. And I think in terms of reaching out to that, it does a good job. It's for guys like me with these very precise kind of passions in black metal. And I think just in terms of that, in terms of hitting those notes and being a quality production, I'll give it my endorsement.
Cool. Yeah. No, I understand that. This is certainly... I think this has a lot of parts that appeal to me. Stylistically, it's generally appealing to me. I think that it's not exactly my thing and how it comes off overall.
Yeah, I get that.
But I basically approve of it. You know what I mean? It's one other thing that's a big influence on this style, I think, that you hear here or in Glush or in a bunch of other sort of modern, more Slavic atmospheric stuff is Valknut, which is a band that
who I've just never bothered to listen to. Right?
And they're probably, in some sense, I mean, I'm sure you'd appreciate the depth of Blazebirth Hall over Valknut particularly, but Valknut distills that style to its most sort of catchy, epic parts. And in terms of things that were reference points for like Wolves in the Throne Room or whatever, they sound way more like Valknut than like Brannigan.
I see. I get that. Okay. Maybe that's the missing link there. Because I know that those guys in Oregon weren't listening to Forests.
Yeah, well, no, I think they may have been, but I'm sure where they were mostly getting it was, again, one doesn't, as I was saying before, one doesn't understand how these people hear music.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, do they listen to the notes?
No, it's more of an Anthony Fantano thing. I like the really glistening, gliding, kind of airy melodies with a really raw production and the fast blasting drums.
Yeah, the sort of the harsh, the harsh screams that really convey an emotion of anger.
Jesus Christ. All right, so good, cool album. You know, hats off to Depths of Despair. Looking forward to more shit from you guys. So did you have some old Horna that you wanted to play for an interlude?
Yeah, I thought, why don't we do, this is pretty just exceptional special stuff, and as far as I know, he hasn't really written anything like it since. Let's just go with, it might not, all of these tracks are phenomenal, and I think Lieki Yavoima is really good, but let's just go for the first one on the back end, which is Merkuriana, which also has a very beautiful title.
And that's off...
and it's a little short.
That's off Sanojesi, right?
Yeah, off of the back end of Sanojesi, which is basically a separate record, like a complimentary record.
Yeah.
And it's a little, the Lieki Yavoima is like 9 minutes. So let's go for Merkuriana. You'll hear the idea. It's this sort of chiming, repetitive, very, very passionate stuff.
All right, works for me. So let's give that a listen, and we'll be back with some more music. back after some more old school Horna with it's been a while. You know, we always like to have the brutal death metal tumor on this show. You know, do like 3 like cool guy black metal records and then just brutal death metal record crashing in like the Kool-Aid Man to fuck up everyone's good vibes.
Like Kool-Aid. Well, the Kool-Aid Man always brings good times.
Yeah, but the brutal death usually doesn't. And, although I guess in this case, this is kind of a good time for record.
I wonder if we have any fans who follow us for the brutal death.
I don't think we do, but I'm going to keep forcing it in there until black metal people realize that it's awesome.
I think you should, yeah. I mean, that's what I knew when we decided to partner up again. That's what I knew I was signing up for.
Hey, I'm not that bad about it. Come on.
No, I know, but
no,
it just comes with the territory. Lots of brutal death metal.
So this time we got Focal Dystonia's Descending in Human Flesh. So this is an interesting record, and it's got some stuff going on it that I would really like to talk about in kind of a broader sense. But so basically, Focal Dystonia is at its core a 2-man project. We've got Florent Duployer on drums, and you may know him. Nobody's gonna know, but he was in a very cool Swiss slam death band called Dynamite Abortion. What an amazing name! By the way, Dynamite Abortion, incredible band, one of the best slam bands of the past 10 years. But he's been kind of a hired gun. He worked with Cenotaph for a little bit, as well as a few other bands. And then on guitar and bass, we've got Floor van Kuijik. I don't know how to pronounce fucking Dutch names, but he is probably best known for working with Corpse with a K, a pretty big slam band. He was in Fermented Masturbation, and he's got a few other projects alongside that. But then, in addition to that, we have this rotating lineup of guest vocalists from all over the brutal death and slam scenes. Basically, new track, new vocalist, which is something we saw before on the Just Before Dawn record, which was another like core of 2 or 3 members with a rotating lineup of vocalists. And this is a fun listen. And I'm interested in getting your impressions before I go into my kind of thesis about brutal death on this, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I like this neither. It's not my favorite of the brutal death things we've listened to, but it's not my least favorite. I think I don't have any profound thoughts about this one. It's, you know, my favorite stuff is definitely still Induced or that other one, Molecular Fragmentation, who have those kinds of war metal, whiplashy guitar tones and sort of gonzo punk energy. This does not really have that, but it does have a lot of cool parts. This is definitely brutal death men's brutal death. This doesn't really intersect with anything else I like, except insofar as Defeated Sanity I definitely like.
This is definitely from the more tech side of the style.
Yeah. But there's plenty of cool moments. This isn't like super listenable for me, but there's plenty of cool. No, I take that back. At this point, it is listenable for me. I mean, listen to a lot of brutal death.
Like at this point.
It's not like, how about this? It's not something I would listen to. But then I thought, in a certain context, like, if I had fun still, like, if I played video games other than Dark Souls or whatever, right? You know, like gun games. If I was playing Cyberpunk or something, I could listen to this. This would be great for that.
Yeah, it's you see, I think of this as a brutal death guy. This is a very fun brutal death record, just because
I get that. Yeah.
There's a lot of variation. There's just, you've got this insane slideshow of ideas, and
there's some crowd pleasing riffs in here.
There's crowd pleasing stuff, and there's also just the effect of like cool idea for 15 seconds, next cool idea, next cool idea. It's a lot of fun. But what I'm really interested in is the way this is set up, just because, so, for instance, like the bands that you really like Induced or Molecular Fragmentation. So brutal death metal, especially this certain scene of it, is operating in a way very similar to traditional jazz. And not necessarily musically, but in the way that you've got this huge like group of unbelievably talented musicians, and they will periodically get together and form a band, in quotes, and they'll do an album or two, or, you know, depending on how much they want to do together. But that album is sort of like more of a session of those musicians. You know what I mean?
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, and the notes you said, yeah, it's like jazz, not necessarily in the Defeated Sanity kind, as in Defeated Sanity literally sounds like jazz.
Yeah.
But like in the format and approach. And that sounds right to me. It helps explain the constantly changing lineups of these bands, or the way that, say, like, Induced may well never record another album, right? Which you told me before, right?
Yeah,
it's like
they're just kind of like getting together, cool ideas, let's bounce off each other. We know each other from other bands. A lot of these guys have like...
Whereas if a black metal band brought in a rotating cast of other vocalists, unless it was like, I think some 90s band did that as a tribute to somebody, you know, maybe to Euronymous or something. I feel like there's some 90s there's a rotating cast of vocalists and just everyone on Panzerfaust. No, that's not really a typical. You'd have to have some exceptional justification for doing that in black metal. Whereas in this, it doesn't feel corny or like a gimmick. I think it explains a lot about this format. And like, you could just call this band Duployer and Van Kuijk.
Yeah,
right?
It would make sense.
Like the Duployer Van Kuijk combo. Or like, you know, like if they wanted to be like cool jazz guys now, they'd be like DVK.
The process, or, you know, like an Alan Parsons project kind of thing. So I think that's a really fascinating development for this kind of music, and I mean, part of it owes to just the sheer level of musicianship necessary to play this music, which is at the peak of, you know, physical musicianship kind of in music, apart from, you know, the furthest stretches of jazz or of classical music. Brutal death is, at least in terms of metal, it's the most challenging stuff to play, especially when you're doing stuff like this.
What about Masana? He literally falls off walls.
I do
keep going.
I do periodically get stoned and watch Masana live sets.
I spent like a half hour looking for a video I'd once seen that was no longer online. Oh my god.
I love Masana.
Yeah.
He's so cool. But yeah, I think it's an interesting way to structure this music, and I think that once, this is presumptuous of me, but I think once everyone realizes that's what's happening here, quote unquote serious music people might start paying attention. You know what I mean? But I think you had you wanted to play the opening track briefly, just for a few seconds.
Yeah. Just start here.
Let's just open with the first little bit of Ascending Thy Abhorrent Gods.
What's he say?
I have no fucking idea.
No.
What was it that got you? Just the huge shriek at the beginning?
It's not even a shriek. It's like, it's as soon as the music starts, the vocalist says something. It's almost like he says something. There's like he does a funny voice or something. He just hits two notes. It's like whoa, and he's like in time with the guitar, and it's definitely a voice, and it's really funny.
Well, yeah, that is actually Don Campan from Waking the Cadaver on that first track.
Oh, that's a famous band. Are they a slam band or like a deathcore band or something?
One of the very first bands to kind of merge slam and deathcore, actually.
So the worst nightmare of everyone who listens to this show, aside from you.
I've got a bonus episode planned out where we'll go over that.
Dude, one of our listeners, a guy from Blood Boiler Studio, sent me. I bet he likes your brutal death content. But he got me into a band called Vitriol that's quite good.
Vitriol, not that familiar.
Yeah,
but, I mean, there's so many weird one-off brutal death projects at this point. So as I said, this is a band with a rotating lineup of guest vocalists, and we'll just go with my first sample. This is off. We're just going to listen to the entirety of "Pinnacle of Deranged Euphoria" because it's one of the shorter tracks on the record. This is featuring Larry Wang of Gorepot and Fatuous Rump. He also runs, if you haven't heard,
Fatuous Rump.
Fatuous Rump fucking kills, man. So good. But he runs he runs a Fat Tub of Lard, which is the place to go for brutal death shirts and merch. He's shipping it all out from Taiwan, and the shipping rates are incredibly fair. He's an awesome dude. He's like friends of mine. So let's just listen to Pinnacle of Deranged Euphoria. Oh, and the way I describe this track in particular is, you know those skateboard tricks where the guy ollies and he like kick flips, but then he redirects the board in midair to land in a different way and do different spins?
Oh, yeah, totally. I know those.
Yeah.
I'm playing along.
I
have no idea what you're talking about.
I love skateboarding videos, so
that's a good. No, I can visualize the thing you mean. Yes.
Yeah. It's like doing these weird little flips with their toes and shit to redirect and make it do these crazy complicated spins you can't perceive in real time. I like it when brutal death bands do that thing in music, and you'll hear it very quickly on this track. So let's try it out.
That definitely made my burrito taste better.
I like the part where they're playing a riff and they stop and they start another riff like 8 times in 4 seconds at the beginning of the song. That's a cool part. Man, dude, I love... that's kind of like an early mathcore thing. The like abrupt transition redirect with a snappy rhythmic fill with a tempo change alongside and then go in a different direction. Love that shit to death. It's so cool.
I really hated that stuff when I was getting into metal, but it's now I can appreciate it as like sort of engaging in the way jazz is. It's like you can't really you can't thrash to it, but
oh no, well this is although
there was a good thrash riff somewhere in that song.
It's interesting because I was thinking about this last night when I was doing my listening, and I was thinking about this record and a lot of the kind of techie brutal death stuff I like. Because one thing that I would compare this to, this is a less technical version in a lot of ways of something like Malignancy. And Malignancy is a phenomenal band, one of my favorites of all time. Incredible music. I've seen them live multiple times, and great people. I can't say enough about every aspect of the band. I've heard all of their albums a shit ton of times. I still could not tell you how an individual song goes by Malignancy. So, but I think that's kind of a normal thing in this style of music. There's you don't know how this music goes. You kind of let it wash over you, and there's these short moments that you'll recognize. But for the most part, it just kind of like blows past you. You seize onto what you can, but you don't necessarily remember it, which I would argue is a very kind of like extreme jazz thing also.
Sure, yeah. And the way, this isn't bodiless tech death.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that changed, back in the day I associated this stuff with, spazzy stuff that has no physical dimension to it. Oh, there's a lot of mathcores like that, or whatever, too. But
this is heavy, though. Yeah.
Yeah, this is quite heavy, and it's, just like a lot of avant-garde jazz or whatever. The way you can engage with it physically, it's just on a slightly more abstract level than, headbanging. You know what I mean? It's got, a feel. Like, if you were watching this in a jazz club sitting down, you'd be, grooving with your torso,
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, because I think it really does, even if it doesn't incorporate jazz in the way that Defeated Sanity does, it really hits a lot of those same notes. Of just some of the most intense jazz that I enjoy. I guess it's not super intense in the huge continuum, but Charles Mingus, the Saint and the Black Sinner Lady, that's body music. As intense and abstract as it is, it hits in the way that a hardcore record does. So give me one of your samples off this.
So for this, obviously I was going to sample the track called The Glacial Distorted Bone, whether or not it was good.
It's a very cool track title.
The Glacial Distorted Bone. Great title. Luckily it also turned out to be a good track. So, we're, lucked out. So, and it'll start with one of the more literally jazzy moments on this record. just instantly from one of the most high IQ sort of riffs on this record, which is sort of that series of sort of like jazzy embellishments, kind of tappy stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff I would have hated when I was younger, but like now I get that it's I get the sort of out there proficiency and internal groove in something like that.
And it's
but
its
for
own
me,
kind of fun, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get that now. But it really, but the way it just drops into the stupidest riff on the record, which is like, I mean, calling that a hate breed riff is even a little generous. Or it's kind of like some of the really meat-brained riffs on that Into the Grave album.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's sick. It's awesome, man.
There's a real good
We have
balance.
a mutual friend who refers to hardcore to moshing as monkey dancing. It's a serious monkey dance riff.
There's a real good balance on this record, I think, between those kind of like high-minded jazzy ideas with just like retard strength pit riffing. There's a lot of records that lean a little bit too far in one direction or the other, but this kind of keeps your attention throughout.
What I liked about that song is, it's also got a sort of like, here's the stable thing, which is this dumbass bulldozer riff. And then it's just going to dance out of that and back in, and out of that and back in. And then you're back in with a solo and, whatever, right? It's,
You get the sense that these two guys worked this out, like, in a practice space together. In probably in a short period of time, which is not to knock the quality of the music, but it has that immediacy of like, okay, next part. What are we doing here? It doesn't feel like because the drummer is from Switzerland and the guitarist is from Holland. I feel like they got together for a couple weeks. They drafted a bunch of ideas on their own and they came together to make it. And it's got that real. I mean, it's got that immediate jazzy quality of like, we're getting together for a session. Well, let's make the hot ideas go. So I think next one's also a sample of yours.
Yeah, it's just neurotic depravity. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there's just this is maybe the one conventionally catchy moment on the album, and really just elegant, well-phrased lead riffing.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't remember this part. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
That's one of the more ornate kind of lead parts on this record.
Yeah, I think it's really the only one. Why can't like just death metal sound like that?
Because the rhythmic focus in Brutal Death is so precise. If a regular death metal band tries to do that, it has a very different mood.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, just like, it's such a sick... Those aren't even riffs. Those are like fully developed melodies, right?
Yeah.
And you can hear at the beginning of the sample, especially at the part that begins the sample comes back at the end, and you can hear how in the more aggressive stuff leading up to it, they're already preparing some of the rhythmic ideas. Mm-hmm. And then they just roll into that huge arcing riff. And what really makes it is the second, the sort of the series of riffs that answers it, which are these sort of descending runs that have this and it's like sliding from legato to staccato and triplets. It's like, this is some of the stuff we've been talking about since that Christian episode, where it's like people in death metal used to take seriously the idea of trying to do certain kinds of classical music things.
Yeah.
They just really pull it off there. And, that easily, given the scale they're using there, or whatever, that kind of like harmonic minor or whatever it is, the kind of slinky scale, right? It could be very easily be like, here's the canned behemoth riff. But it's not that. And it's
punch
totally
it up, they make it more abstract than that.
Yeah, and like you could simplify that riff, you could simplify that by 50%, and it would still be just really sick regular death metal riffing. And nobody does things like that right now.
Well, yeah, and I think that, because I was thinking about this earlier today.
None of the bands with like raw production and sort of, whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this earlier today, which is the one of the parts of the brutal death metal problem really is that brutal death metal, I mean, what does it refer to? Well, it basically refers to death metal played at a speed and technical level, and there's kind of a minimum to it. You know what I mean? There's a floor to how slow or how simple you can do things, and it's no longer brutal death. Now, obviously, you've got these weird exceptions in the slam scene, like, remember that Embryectomy record we covered? Slam is, this sort of, like, niche of brutal death, but it's also got its own alien character. The problem is really, once you get to a certain level of tempo and technicality, it becomes more and more challenging to parse and to pick apart mentally as a listener. So, I mean, I think that's the reason a lot of normal, so to speak, death metal bands aren't doing stuff like this, because so much of the feel of this music owes to this overwhelming, like, technical debt. You know what I mean? It's just, you can't fold it in to, like, an old school death metal type band without it fundamentally changing and possibly not being as cool as it is at this speed and this intensity. I mean, I think and we've talked about it before, I think there's ways to fold some of these ideas back into mainline death metal, but I think this record in particular is an instance of something where it's like, this can only exist within its own.
Oh, yeah, no, I just really meant something like that melodic idea.
I gotcha. Well, that just requires people being more fucking creative.
Exactly, yeah, just taking more time. It's like, I think a lot of bands put a lot of time into stuff that doesn't matter, like tweaking their sound and like fiddling with pedals and
obsessing
amps and
over
shit.
Tone, yeah.
Yeah, buying new amps, fiddling with amps. Let's move the mic to this side of the room. Let's move it to that side of the room. Who cares? I mean, you figure all that stuff out in the process. You'll figure it out on the next record. It's like,
definitely.
Any excuse. Bands will take any excuse to avoid writing riffs.
That's true. All right, well, that's a good lead into my final sample. Because this is a band that isn't afraid of writing riffs. And I think the riff at the end of this sample is one of the heaviest of the year. It is moronic in the best way possible. And this is off the final track, the title track, Descending in Human Flesh.
All right.
So let's try it out.
Yeah, that riff at the end is awesome.
God, why are they only playing it like twice? That's a giant, like, murderous riff.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that regular death metal does well. It's, know when you got a good thing and play it again.
Yeah.
Although there are brutal death bands that do that, to be fair.
Oh, definitely. No, it's just like, but I really like just the elegant development of those riffs. There's an art to ratcheting up tension. And, a lot of people don't really understand, like, the micro variations where it's like, we're taking it from a 6 to a 7 to an 8 to a 9 to a 10, and then the giant release and that huge pit riff at the end. There's a real art to how to construct that. And that's a great example of it.
That pit riff had a sick, like, in the death metal context, I guess you say kind of ulcerate-y, but it kind of reminded me of, like, Killing Joke.
That arpeggiated figure at the end of the first...
Yeah, a little Killing Joke
part,
thing, or Armored Angel kind of thing at the end. It was, that's what I'd associate it with, but probably ulcerate, and it was really cool. Like, It wasn't even... The rhythm was really stupid, but the melodic embellishment was smart.
Yeah, you got the melodic embellishment in the A version, and then the nasty, like, syncopated pinch harmonic figure in the second. And, kind of going back to, remember when we were talking about molecular fragmentation, and I talked about how it's the same guitarist was in that band as Induced. And we could determine that there were certain phrases and certain melodic figures that he was repeating. He's got a very idiosyncratic style.
Yeah, I really like that guy's work in general, I think.
It's fascinating the way, because his riffs are really constructed out of these micro phrases in a way that's a lot easier to perceive than a lot of other brutal death guitarists. So we've got kind of an example of that here. I mean, just that big, open gallop thing, every band ever has done that. But then it's always about how do you bring it back? How do you work it back around? And, well, you've got kind of this ulcerate-ish arpeggiated melodic figure on one hand, and then you've just got this cool traditional kind of brutal death pinch harmonic figure on the other. It's all about the details in this music, man. Like, and I mean, that I'm saying that for the audience. It's like,
yeah, I get that,
because a lot of the stuff at first blush sounds the same, and I won't even argue the differences between brutal death bands are slighter in a lot of ways than between melodic black metal bands. But they do exist, and they have an outsized importance when you get to this sort of level of speed and technicality. It's the small things that make a huge difference.
It's so dependent on the way that different guitarists play that on a micro level of what are the riffs like, it's almost got to be different person to person.
Yeah,
and that's another way it's like jazz, where, like, yeah, you sort of, like, know the players, you know their style, you can recognize them.
There's an effect like jazz, like, I mean, that's a good way to bring it up, like, 10 guys, 10 proficient musicians playing a jazz standard will have an extremely different feel and an extremely different interpretation of the work. And I think the same kind of thing would apply to brutal death guitarists. I would love to hear a compilation album of 10 brutal death guitarists doing their cover interpretations of Devourment's Postmortal Coprophagia or something like that, and just see how do these guys feel out these sort of abstract rhythms in different ways.
The guy from Molecular Fragmentation and probably Induced, I don't know if we know, but is Oscar Ortega. Right?
Yeah, Oscar from Spain.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's always interesting. And I like how we periodically come back and we kind of further develop these ideas of not only what brutal death metal is, but what it could be. And more importantly, why it actually matters to people outside the style.
Its day will come.
Its day will come. That's perfect. So, really fun record, like it a lot. Take a quick break, get back with our final record of the night.
How's it going? Connor here from Oncology, and you're listening to Terminus.
Okay, so white metal with Elmet, and this is all you, man. You know this band, I don't, so go ahead.
Well, yeah. So, I mentioned earlier in the news item at the beginning of the show, labels and scenes that were sort of holding it down during the dark years of '06, the mid 2000s to around 2012 or 2015 even, right? And the Legion Blotan bands, Legion Blotan being the label, run by the guy from White Metal, was certainly one of those scenes. It was White Metal in particular, and Legion Blotan in general, you could say are the originators of the stompy black metal sound, I'd say. It was already coming into existence through stuff like Bonal and the Klaxon Records bands in the U.S., or Klaxon, the sort of, punky black stuff that's influenced by the Mysterious Guy hardcore scene.
Yeah.
And White Metal was like the UK version of that, but in White Metal, it starts to actually sound like black metal, right? There start to be sort of characteristically black metal melodic ideas, sort of thematic ideas, whatever, right? And that becomes really influential feeding back into the US scene, I think. It's almost like the stomp is a trademark of US BM now. And also into Denmark, right? You heard Fonbearer, right? Yeah. That whole scene, you can hear exactly the same pedigree. Like, those guys were clearly dudes into hardcore, get into black metal via, Iljarny stuff, right? And also into the sort of epic, heroic heathen black metal thing. Lots of Bill Skirnir, obviously, right? So white metal is at the root of a lot of stuff that's become very influential. And back then, they were way more of an outlier, right? It's sort of like a band whose style has kind of come around, I think. And it's interesting because, white metal is from Yorkshire, right? So northern England. For the Romans, it was Northumbria. And it's also the region that was in the Danelaw, which is the place that was sort of conquered by the Vikings for a time in the, early Middle Ages, let's say, conquered from the Saxons, who'd conquered it from the Celts. So it's got this distinctive composite culture and a distinctive regional dialect that has influences of Norse in it. He writes songs in that dialect and draws on the Viking heritage in a lot of his stuff. To me, this is a band that was, right up my alley at the time, right? It's like, oh shit, sort of, punk influenced pagan black metal that is drawing on a deep knowledge of and interest in folklore and regional history, right? Rather than just, hey, we're gonna sing another song about Ragnarok, right?
Yeah.
So really right up my alley, but it's a sound that I found it was hard to wrap my head around back then. It's, while they're known for incorporating this kind of hardcore and oi influence and whatever, if you went to white metal looking specifically for that sound, that was mixed up with a lot of other stuff. A lot of kind of like residue of Burzum, I think. And so I tried listening with Agbrig and Gutmer's Hall. I don't know that I ever made it through the entirety of one of those records. But I could tell that they were good, but at the time it just wasn't really for me. It was quite sort of moody, glum. It had these very tough vocals, but kind of not exactly melancholic, more like
miserable.
Yeah, sort of. I guess I was gonna save it, but I think an overall way to characterize white metal would be withdrawn or reticent.
Yeah, I get that.
I think it's got this scowling quality. I think I'd associate white metal with, the idea of sort of a peasant earthiness withdrawing into itself. Like, the absentee landowner from London arrives in the north, right? And, he walks past, and all the local peasantry and fishermen or whatever, see him, and they all respectfully touch their caps, but they're all kind of mumbling to each other and remaining kind of silent.
They'll walk back in their houses.
Yeah, exactly. Or, the middle class reformers come from the city to, help the workers, and they find the workers kind of confusingly not very interested in being helped.
Very like Innsmouth residents or something.
Yeah, Innsmouth residents, but the Innsmouth residents are the good guys. Exactly. And it's sort of and it's related to coming from this sort of isolated and in some ways kind of the North has been really fucked over economically in a lot of ways for a long time in various different ways. Gone from very rough working class country to sort of deindustrialized, right? And so I think it has that kind of character. And the only thing I've heard from them that sounded really kind of brash in the way that I was expecting with this is the last release, East Riding Cart Burial, which I really enjoyed. But I think through giving Elmet like full time for the show, I think I get it now. Mm-hmm. So and this record has some of the energy that I heard on East Riding, but I think this is a good way for people to get into this kind of surly, scowling, withdrawn, earthy kind of white metal mood.
Okay, I get that.
Mm-hmm. So what did you make of it?
So I think
your sample might be a good example of that kind of vibe, by the way. But yeah.
Yeah, it's got this musically it's got this kind of like it's got this almost French technique of big triumphant thing turning into sour gloomy thing on the last few notes of the riff. That's something he does a lot. But I think one of the important things musically for this is that this guy, with a little bit of research, appears to come from a noise and power electronics background. And I think you have the theory that he got into that around the same time he was getting into black metal.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You did the research. My thought was he came from this sort of like, the kind of this hardcore scene. Those people were also really into noise and black metal, right?
Yeah, so he's got this whole like giant list of projects, and probably about it's like a third black metal and like 2/3 noise and power.
Oh Jesus, that's a lot of noise and power electronics. Yeah,
yeah, it is.
12-year-old proud parent.
Which is a great name. Apparently he did a record with that called Council Estate that I really want to hear, but I was not able to find that. But I was able to find stuff like Mutant Ape and some of his...
Alien Zoner Ape, Mutant Prostitute, Mutant Sex Quartet, Mutant Sex Taurus Quartet.
I assume that's all stuff with him and like a buddy, probably.
Various live lineups, yeah.
Various lineups.
But he's also got Inseminoid.
Yeah, no, and I've listened to some of it. It's actually pretty good if you're into, like, really rough, like, wall noise stuff. It's solid. So I think an interesting thing happens when guys who are really into noise and power electronics get into black metal. Which is the things that they hear and the things that they listen for, and as a result, the things that they make are defined heavily by a perspective of music sculpted by their time in noise and experimental music. So there's a big thing on this record where the fundamental unit is not maybe the riff, but
I agree, yeah.
It's the fundamental unit is sound in this very abstract way. The production constantly changes across this album. Clearly, the production is redefined for every track to emphasize what he feels is important to the song.
Interesting, yeah.
And I think that also goes with the writing, because I think a point where we diverge is, I would argue, because you said in your notes this is more of an album than a song album, and I think that I disagree with that heavily. I don't think this really hangs together very well as a whole album. I think that any given black metal fan, there will be 3 or 4 tracks they really like, and they won't understand the rest. That was my experience with the record. There's about half of this record I really enjoy, and the other half doesn't really make sense to me. Which is not really a knock against the record. That's a cool thing to do. It's an interesting approach. But I guess my question is, if you're making black metal, you choose either the constantly varying sound quality and altered production, or you choose the extremely varied songwriting. And when you bring those two together, it creates something that doesn't hang together as a complete piece within this style of music, where it would in power electronics or noise, if that makes sense.
I get what you mean. Yeah. I mean, I think the way it hangs together... Yeah, well, yeah, we'll get into it. Take your... do you want to do your sample, or...
Yeah, sure. So, here's one... there's like I said, there's about 3.5 tracks on this that I really enjoy a lot, and the other half are just, not my thing. I don't really get it. But this is a track called Bradion Kirkgate, and it's got some really interesting ideas that I think relate to some of the stuff that you've talked about in the notes for your samples. So let's try kind of the middle of this track. So, yeah, that's, there's interesting things happening here. Because something you mentioned on your samples is that this guy doesn't really write black metal melodies in the way that we understand them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that became clear to me on this record. And I think... Yeah, I think that's characteristic of his style, and I now get that, and I didn't before.
Yeah, it's like, on one hand, it's kind of this, that big riff is this sort of grandiose medieval melody, but it's got this huge sour, kind of gloomy turn at the end, sort of French style. But the overall effect of it is not like a black metal song. And I think, honestly, I would say that you're probably a better reference point. What does that riff sound like to you? Because I think it's something outside of metal.
The slow one, the majestic one.
Yeah.
It's clearly sort of attempting to do certain things that are like black metal things. It's sort of paralleling what a slower Burzum riff might do or something in that
Yeah,
vein.
but it's wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
It's cool, but it's wrong for black metal, which is one of the most interesting things about this album.
Yeah, I think he's really attempting to make a specifically English black metal that's built with raw material that is not coming from Scandinavia and really not coming directly from any of the other cult scenes. You can hear how I think there was more Norse BM in his old stuff. Like, I think the Burzum thing is almost gone on this.
Yeah, I would say it's much like Burzum at this point.
I would say it's and even back in the day, that was more of an idea than a way it sounded.
Yeah.
But it's, we've talked on the show about the English black metal problem and the sort of idea, well, it never really took off there in the way that it did in Scandinavia or Greece or slightly later France or...
Well, apart from kind of gothic stuff, yeah, it never coalesced into its own sound.
Yeah,
I think that's starting to change now.
I agree. I think that's happening. So, it's like this sounds a lot like Eisensker in some ways. In that,
yeah, that was something I was going to bring up.
Eisensker's melodic sensibility is much closer to the Norse stuff, obviously. For you, sometimes a little too close. But the guitar tones, big, resonant, boxy, noisy guitar sound, prominent kind of bass. Eisensker, you notice, sounded a lot like Discharge.
Well, I would argue, at least from what I've heard, and really my recent exposure to what we are calling now the English black metal sound is limited to what we've covered on the show. The two big consistencies I'm noticing are one, bulldozer bass tones a la Godflesh. I think that's a very important part of it.
And Venom, right?
And Discharge to a degree. And also...
And Bulldozer.
And Bulldozer. And also, though not necessarily present on this, but I think subtly in melody, maybe here and there, the jangly English guitar music of the Smiths and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you heard that mostly on that. You heard that a lot on the
Axis of Light.
Axis of Light, yeah.
But there's been peaks of that, or just like a willingness to go into very authentic kind of Cure territory. I mean, that was on Eisensker. That was on a couple other English records that we've covered.
Yeah.
That is not so present here. I think there's a touch of it in some of the melodic ideas, but those are the big defining parts. And definitely the bulldozer bass is all over this record.
Yeah, so I'd say yeah. So I think this guy was doing this back in since 2008. So he was sort of early to this party. Eisensker was active at roughly the same time. I think they did one in like 2011 or something. Only done two. Eisensker, by the way, is a full band, not just one guy.
Yeah, we found that out.
He corrected me. Yeah. It looks like they had one in 2004, a demo, and in 2007, but Monothylon is 2012. But so roughly synchronous, I guess. But this guy's been doing it for a long time. There are a lot more cult English black metal bands now than there used to be. Way more. Not all of which sound like this. Some of which are great. Some of which are completely useless. But I think what it is, it's like, in the sense, one reason, we've speculated various reasons it didn't happen in the UK. One reason might just be that, like, the way black metal happened in Scandinavia was the export of English-style extreme music. It's like basically combining. England basically invents extreme music, right? And it's Discharge, Napalm Death, Amoebics, far more than the U.S. The Killing Joke, Fields of the Nephilim, all this sort of far out shit. Those ideas get brought into metal and combined with a sort of Scandinavian sense of folk and classical melody, and just being an asshole by the Norse, right?
Just being an asshole. I like that.
Yeah. So it's sort of, it's like this infusion of just sort of punk-rooted weirdness and extremity gets added to a metal and folk and classical sense of melody. It creates the Scandinavian template. Other people work with that or attempt to parallel it in their various ways. So you get that energy added to French sense of melody or whatever, right?
Which is funny because I was actually going to say that one of the things I would compare this band the most to would be some of the Quebecois stuff.
Yeah, I think those are probably, yes. I mean, also in terms of, labels important in the Dark Days, Tour de Garde. I think there's been a lot of back and forth.
This is very
between Legion
Tour
Blotan
de Garde.
and Tour de Garde.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, and so, yeah, it's like, how do you build, you build UK BM using only English parts. And so there's basically, and interestingly, there's no heavy metal in it. It's like, in part because I guess in black metal, the heavy metal isn't really coming from Iron Maiden, at least until the Swedes get it.
Unless you're listening to like Forefather or something, there's definitely some Maiden in there.
Oh, well, yeah, for Forefather for sure. Yeah, that's a different English black metal sound.
Yeah, it's a different idea, different paradigm of how to construct it. Yeah,
but yeah, it's like, so let's play my sample. This will, I think, make it clearer. So, I've got a couple related ones, and there's also something really interesting. So stylistically, it's interesting. We'll listen for this sort of English thing, and it's also, actually, this is clearer on the second one I had. Let's listen to Bastard Sons of North Luddite Wolf.
Okay,
and we'll hear some distinct, I think, a collision of a bunch of the different things we've referenced.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, so did you hear any metal during that?
Well, this is a really interesting kind of divisive record for us because, like, Bastard Sons of North Luddite Wolf is, like, one of the tracks I can't stand on this record.
Well, it's really weird, right?
Yeah, it's very... I that's one of those things that, like, I don't know what the fuck is happening on this song. Like, I don't get it.
Well, I understand where you're coming from to a certain degree. So, like, I mean, there's one main theme here, right? Which is dun 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 dun. It's kind of even hard to hum. There's a weird chromaticism at the end.
Yeah, it's
that's like anything melodically. It's like American hardcore. I think there's a ton of negative approach all over this record.
It's also like a little bit like some weird kind of old Russian classical stuff, kind of like Peter and the Wolf type shit. That's like one of the only things I can associate it with. It's like,
sort of like, I get what you mean, sort of Stravinsky, half melodic. Oh, Peter and the Wolf. I actually hear what you mean now that you say it.
Yeah. It's like, But also the thing is, like, the rhythmic ideas are just so fucking goofy to me. Like,
well, that's part of the style. Yeah, so it's like in Scandinavia, the oi thing almost comes in not indirectly maybe through Varg, but also more in Forgotten Woods is this kind of marginal thing, but basically not at all. The oi idea gets added in Germany. Things like that. But here, that's like fundamental. It's like, if you were going to build a UK black metal, it has to have that, and I guess oi-inflected hardcore. And then there's this embellishment on that, which is weird. So it's like, that becomes the main theme. I agree with you, though. That doesn't really work like melodies work. Like, it doesn't follow the metal / folk / classical based paradigms for how black metal riffs
honestly
work.
What it kind of sounds like, and it's not to be backhanded, is like,
oh well, okay, here it comes.
Like the kind of thing that a kid who picks up guitar and
oh god,
he's
every time you say not to be backhanded, you're about to say something really dick.
But he's been playing guitar for like 6 months, and he likes the idea of metal, and he tries to write his own riff. And there's a version of that riff in his head that is much tougher than what comes out. It's like, but it's interesting, and it's not backhanded because the guy can write really tough, weird riffs on this record. So there's something deliberate, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's a stylistic choice because I think I understand the reference points a little more. But
yeah, you understand the underpinnings of
that's
what's
sort of
going
like
on
someone, what it sounds like. Yeah, it's that's how a lot of 80s hardcore is, kind of, right? Is guys who weren't really metal dudes imitating certain things they heard in metal.
Yeah.
But you get the goth thing there too with those little arpeggios, right?
Yeah.
And you also hear the form. So you get the metal, the goth, or post punk or whatever, and you could hear, or sorry, not the metal, the oi music. You could hear the components of a distinctively English BM. But also the strange thing about it structurally, right, is that like all the sounds exist in different places. And like the main riff even, especially as it develops, at first it's just a power chord riff and chug, right? Yeah. But as it develops, the power chords carry the first part of the riff, and then the riff is answered or finished by a second guitar that's in a different sonic space. And then there are these other ones layering on top of it. And it's kind of like, not only is it different from black metal, sort of the opposite of the sort of, the basic aesthetic in black metal is like seamless stream of tremolo melody, whether it's aggressive power chords or sort of single string or sliding harmonies. Yeah. And that's, again, coming from these kinds of music that are, some of those, played with violins or whatever, right? And coming from riff-driven metal or whatever, this is coming from sort of like, more discontinuity-driven punk music and post-punk music. And it's very odd, and it has something to do with the noise thing, too, I think. Could you explain how this works production-wise? Because it's confusing to me.
Yeah, so I think that if my theory is right in that this guy's primary musical background, at least as a musician, is in noise and power electronics, that kind of thing, he is viewing production itself as an instrument in a way that most metal musicians do not. Yeah. So he is writing these songs, which, by the way, the songs on this record are very disparate. in a lot of ways.
Each one has a different personality. Yeah.
Extremely, like, radically different, even for, you know, a full spectrum black metal band. And as a result, he is modifying the production in very extreme ways to fit what he perceives as the atmosphere of that song. So, usually I would say, oh, this is recorded in different sessions. That's what I thought at first. It's not. He's just gone in the mixing and mastering process and modified these things extensively.
So it's just a thing you're not supposed to do. And he's done it.
In metal, yes. That's not a thing you do.
And again, in metal you have sort of continuous atmosphere, right?
Exactly. Here,
it's like
that's not what this is about. Because, like, for instance, there's one song on this, the fifth one, Dree Neat. It's basically unlistenable to me. The bass is so blown out. You know, you've got this horrible kind of, like, clipping, crackling on the low end. It's like the absolute most broken parts of early Graveland. And I get it. You know, I get the point of it, but it's just, it doesn't work for black metal for me. But at the same time, I appreciate there's a guy experimenting with that side of the music. And I think there is something to seize on there. Like, for instance, you know, a good example of that done in a way that I appreciate more would be Reverum Ibn which has so much crazy post-production stuff going on, but it hews a little closer to a central idea that all the songs revolve around. This is just different places completely.
Yeah, I hear it as coming from a pretty consistent place, but it has to do with that. It's the consistency formed through the, God, this sounds labyrinth. It's going to sound convoluted, but the point is, there are all these different, there are all these different parts stylistically, all these different parts passage to passage, but even within one riff, there are these different parts interacting, right?
I get that. Yeah, there's
he's written it so that there's these overlapping pieces within each riff, and I feel like the overall mood relating to that kind of reclusive nature or surly reticence has something to do with that. It's like this music is not cohering for you. It's doing something continually, like, doing something other than what you expect.
Yeah, it's that grumbling hermetic style that nobody really loves, but everyone respects.
Well, let's listen to another thing. Let's listen to Ghosts, Trach, and Elmet. This is the first track. And let's listen to how he, like, composes something more like a black metal riff.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, so there you've got, I think that part is very pretty. And it has there you get some of the continuous tremolo feel. And it's got an atmosphere. It has this kind of misty atmosphere. Kind of, if I can think of anything that's kind of like, it's kind of like one of the, like, Stotts, like one of those sort of, Basque bands. Mm-hmm. But, it's still really not how black metal melodies go, right?
I don't know. I perceive this one as a lot more black metal than the last sample.
But there's something similar. It's like...
I get I think that a lot of it...
Da with the changing chords under it. There's something rocky about that.
Well,
kind of like
question. Well, here's my question: if he was playing those chiming leads as a continuous tremolo melody, would it seem as alien?
The note choice is really weird. It's just, it also, like the last thing that the riff you really didn't like, it also has this kind of harmonically all over the place quality, where it sounds a little minor key, sounds a little major key. This riff sounds kind of like chord changes. Like you can hear chord changes under them in the way that, like a post-punk or a new wave song would have or something.
I got you. Well, honestly, this would remind me...
like the weird da-da-da, the ascent at the end that comes in
this reminds
out of
me
nowhere.
A little bit of some of the, forgotten stuff from BBH, like for instance Varglida, which was the interim band for Forest. Forest broke up for a couple years and then Varglida formed and did a couple records of Forest plus a little bit of death metal. They're very weird but cool records. And then Forest got back together and Varglide was done. But it reminds me of some of that. I don't think or even like Nitberg. I mean, I think this is almost a little bit like some of the Nitberg stuff. It
doesn't sound like, maybe like the demo stuff. I can see the weird, you hear some of the discontinuity in the weirder BBH stuff. It can sound like they're sort of forcing a melody that doesn't. They're forcing melodic ideas that don't come organically out of their own continuum of style. But they have this continuum of melody, whereas here that's just. And so then it sounds like they'll just push some strange power chord idea in it. Whereas here, it's like there's none of that continuum to interrupt. But I can see how if you heard that in BBH, you could start trying to make that a feature, not a bug.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've already established that every cool black metal musician is listening to BB-8. So.
Yeah, sure.
So real quick, my last sample, I just want to show this off. This is kind of the I don't want to say the closest to black metal because this is a black metal record, but I think the guy who I have no doubt will listen to this because he seems like this kind of guy will appreciate what I say with it. This is the closest to black metal as we understand it that this album sounds. Mm-hmm. And this is probably the coolest kind of like climax on the record. And this is from Gumrist Ne Kund. And this is just basically the end of the song, and this is the giant moment.
You might want to start this one a little bit earlier so we get some of the build to it. Maybe we start it like 30 seconds earlier.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Great fucking... It's the sort of thing that's like, you think it's BBH, but it's not actually. They never did anything that, like, obvious, but not in a bad way. You know? They never did the giant stomp ending like this guy does.
Oh, the stomp part is
that.
great. That's the, that's the hardcore, and I guess also, you get rhythms like that. That rhythm's really come into its own in the last 20 years or 10 years. Dong, 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 dong.
Yeah, and honestly, one thing I will say, I really appreciate how this record, I believe, pretty confidently has real drums, which,
yeah, for sure.
does add a lot to this music, especially on that track, because that with a drum machine would not work the same way. They're a little sloppily played in a good way. There's a real energy to it. And I just really like that. That's one of the biggest, like, single moments on a record that doesn't really have, like, big moments in the way that we think of them.
I think it's got a lot. I mean, that's certainly the climax of the record, which is one reason I think it coheres as a whole. Once you get to that track, you start to realize, oh, this record sort of builds to this. And then it's got a kind of like, I almost figured it would end after this track, but was pleasantly surprised to hear the kind of punky stomp stuff keep going.
Nah, man, that's the place to end the album, right there.
I like the sort of Energizer Bunny effect, like in Overkill by Motorhead. Just keeps going. It's interesting. It's like that part, when I heard it before, when you sampled it with just the kind of background version of the trem riff, it was hard to make out the melody. It's like, I heard the climax as the big trem part before it even goes into the breakdown. And then, like, the part you sampled as the reprise, the return of that big theme.
It's interesting.
Yeah, but either way, that whole sequence is cool and is a climactic moment.
I just really enjoy the escalation of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what would I pick? I mean, as far as, like, writing black metal riffs, I think, once I figured, oh, these really are not written like black metal riffs, I thought, well, okay, so good test of a record then is, are there sort of traditional black metal riffs on it? I think this is about as close as he gets. This is excellent. And it's at the end of Bastard Sons again, which I think is just a great song. And here's the only part that sounds Norse on the whole album. Or maybe Norse, kind of Swedish too, but yeah, sort of just more like the lesser known second wave stuff. I think you'll get a lot of here at the end towards the end of Bastard Sons. Closes out with a negative approach bass line.
It's either negative approach or integrity for you.
Well, I mean, yeah, just, I mean, da 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 da. I mean, what is that? It's like Ready to Fight. I mean, da 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 da. It's, I mean, I'm sure this guy's at a negative approach, but, it's also, you know, as far as US hardcore to be influenced by, if you're a British guy, they were one of the ones that had, like, the biggest oi influence. But yeah, I mean, that was a really great sort of glorious second wave riff, but it has still just much louder power chords in it than you'd expect, and the sort of melodic embellishments on it are much quieter than you'd expect.
Yeah, I get that.
It's unusual, but that is just a great ripping riff, and I think there are a few other moments like that. But hearing that reminded me that I forgot to mention the other thing, which is really just in a lot of the blasting parts on this, and you got some of them in your first sample. It sounds like Napalm Death, like Siege of Power, whatever.
Yeah, the most melodic moments of early Napalm Death.
Yeah, the two melodic moments on Scum. Where there's like, it's like there are two chords and there's kind of this kind of implied epic harmony there. Like,
hey, the intro riff to Scum is very melodic, just not
yeah, no, I mean, I know, I mean, like, you know,
I still gotta cover that with one of my bands one of these days.
I love like that blast part in the middle of, you know, that blast part in the middle of Siege of Power starts sounding like second wave black metal, but kind of, but through a different route. And we talked in our bonus episode about like Emperor, and we were doing Emperor and Morbid Angel, about how important grind was to some of that early stuff. And it's like, well, you know, this guy has built black metal out of a bunch of parts that aren't black metal. That's exactly what the first black metal bands did, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, you have to, don't you?
Yeah. So he's created something that's kind of adjacent to those early styles. And it's like, whereas they have this kind of, the Napalm Death vibe or whatever is you have to sort of dig for it there. Here it's like front and center. And if anything, he makes it heavier by slowing down the blasts. It's, you know, but yeah, it's, you know, yeah, so, I mean, as far as overall thoughts about the record, I mean, I think also a thing he's doing with the melodies reminds me a lot of Into Oblivion, where Into Oblivion sort of take, you know, opposite ends of the hi-fi, lo-fi, sort of musicians' music, non-musicians' music, right? Kind of, you know, brutal craft music.
Yeah.
Opposite ends of the spectrum. But, they have this way of, you know, Into Oblivion, right? It sounds like their riffs have something in common with black metal and death metal riffing, but they're shaped in this totally different way, right? They're kind of, for Into Oblivion, they're shaped in this kind of geometric way. They're all strangely timed in ways that have nothing. These big, long stretches of whole notes, as you said, that sort of, that shift at unusual times. So it gets, you know, it's like a big kind of geometric kind of monument, like a modernist sculpture or like an Egyptian temple sculpture or something. And this white metal feels kind of angular too, but it feels like it's being built up with fragments or pieces. Like instead of like a single big monument, it's like this sort of superimposition and sort of collage, even within one riff of these different parts.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's,
kinda,
you know,
like,
where...
kind of like brutal death metal, where it's these micro phrases agglutinating to each other, you know?
Yeah. So it's like, and, you know, Into Oblivion, like, some of the basic melodic and harmonic characteristics remain from both black and death metal, and they're sort of, in a way, offering the organization amidst the very strange structures and timing of the riffs. Yeah. But this is like, those get scrapped completely.
Yeah. It's just doing its own thing, man. Partying out.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I think overall I was... You know, look, and I also agree with you that, like, yeah, that one, like, weird kind of stompy hardcore riff that you really didn't like.
Yeah.
not my favorite. You know, I mean, I don't like American hardcore that much, except for Negative Approach and things like that. And you know, that definitely has a kind of tonally in between quality that I'm not a huge fan of. But there are moments, you know what? Like, there's moments where I could like quibble with how some of these things are arranged. But the point is, when I'm doing that, I'm like not meeting it on its terms.
Yeah, I get that.
And it very clearly defines those terms. And I think like everything about this has to do with discontinuity. Like, much more so than I've even heard before from white metal. And the whole thing forms a kind of statement to me. And I think that relates back to that reticence and resistance. Just to get a little more out there, there's a idea in Heidegger about being, or our sense of our being, or whatever, emerging from the conflict between world and earth, where world is like our cultural universe, where we sort of give meaning to things, and earth is that which is outside of it and resists it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, art kind of like sets world into earth and also brings this resistant earth out into the world, shows us something of this resistant part of reality that's keeping something from us and hiding. It brings that forward, and it also maybe brings our world into it. And this record has something a lot like that, but I think of like the earthy quality. I think a phrase that I just remember is like self-seclusion from Heidegger. It's like I could be misremembering it, but the point is the basic idea is like something earthy that defines itself by its elusiveness. And this conceals itself in strange ways. I think that's part of the cool thing about it.
Yeah, well, that's much more impressive than anything I could have to say, so...
You know, you'd say something that impressive about a different record.
I'd say something that impressive about like a really retarded slam record.
There you go.
So, to wrap us up.
Yeah, so to close out, I thought we would do a little not metal, which I think we talked about using this as using the interludes and outros to do that, but we haven't really done it yet.
There's just too much cool old metal stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. It's like it's so hard not to just throw in more metal. But I think as far as stuff that's come out this year that I really, really like, there was an unusually good neo-folk album by a guy called Vrimuat. And the album is called O Tempora, O Mores. So, O the times, O the sort of morality isn't really the social norms. Mm-hmm. A lot of neo-folk, as I'm sure many of our listeners know, is
lame.
People who don't understand what the original neo-folk relied heavily actually on methods kind of similar to white metal.
Yeah.
Sort of industrial-based cut-up, the very simple guitar parts. They weren't trying to sound like folk music per se. They're sort of folky, but they sounded more like 60s psych folk than like English folk. Certainly Death in June doesn't really sound anything like an English folk band. Current 93 draws on that a little bit, but not really. There's very little, interesting or compelling, like, finger-picked guitar work on any of it, right? Mm-hmm. And the imitators just pick out this, strummy strum stuff and miss everything else about it. So, but, like, this guy can play guitar and has a sense of what folk music sounds like. And also, some gothy stuff. I think, like, let's just do, all the tracks on this are just really, really good. But, I want to play, Wolfsangle, which sounds kind of like The Watchman by, Fields of the Nephilim. But this is just a lovely song. It's really hypnotic. It's 8 minutes, and it's cool.
All right. Yeah. That works for me. So, thanks a lot for listening, guys, and we will talk to you next week.
Ja.
Ein Bild, ein Blick, ein Mädchen, ein Bann. Das Wort dich fragend, dein Wort mein Heil. Wie gar die Liebe, die mich verschlang. Ein längs, zwei quer, ein Knoten, ein Seil. Ein Pfad dir folgend, ein Mädchen, ein Bann. Dein Ort, mein Hort, mein Wort, kein Heil. Ich gab die Liebe, die sie verschlang. Ein Stich, ein Dolch, ein Hieb, ein Beil. Ein Schuss ins Blattwerk, ein Märchen voll Grimm. Ein Lied, ein Brief, ein Neubeginn. Wo die Donau ihre Schleifen zieht, wo mein Traum am Boden kniet. Mädchen, ein Bann. Erst 3, dann 7, oh Schicksalsklang. Und folgt das Ass auf dem letzten Rang. Auf dich mein Weib mit frohem Gesang. Weit gefehlt, mein Irrtum fürwahr. Pik Dame lacht und spricht zu mir. Du hast verloren, du dummer Narr. Hast hochgelebt, nun fällst zum Tier. Ein Schuss ins Blattwerk, ein Märchen folgen. Ein Lied, ein Brief, ein Neubeginn, wo die Donau ihre Schleifen zieht, wo mein Traum am Boden kniet. Steig empor, o Galatee, mein Herz verloren in nordischer See, so richtig scharf, zerreiß den Bann, ich schau aufs Meer und suche dich, dann und wann.